Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode of my DDLC modding beginners tutorial. Today we are getting into background images, into the character sprites and into the music. I already have my code open here, but before we get into the actual code, you might have noticed in the last episode that every time I made a change to the script, I had to close and reopen the game. And as you can imagine, when you're developing your mod and you're making a lot of changes, this can get really annoying. Luckily for us, there is a solution. We are going into the game folder, into the definitions folder, and we are opening definitions.rpy. Near the top here, you are going to find this line, define config.developer, and you want to change this to true with a capital T. Make sure you save the file and let's launch our project. And we're just going to start a new game. And now with the window selected, the game window selected, we are going to click Shift+R. And you can see that here at the top on the window title, it says Autoreload now. If we go back to our script, our day one script, and we do a change, I'm going to change this dot to an exclamation mark. As soon as I save this file, the game is going to automatically reload our script and our changes are going to appear here. If I change this to like I am the narrator of the DDLC club, that doesn't really make sense, but you can see that our changes automatically show up here. This is really useful, so you don't have to always be closing the game and opening and closing and opening. Just make sure that when you go to compile your game to distribute it, to come back to definitions.rpy and change this back to false. You don't want to compile your game with developer mode on because that's going to change how the game is played. For example, developer mode allows you to skip unskippable pauses. So if your mod relies on pauses to get some timing right, the player can't click to skip that pause and it's going to ruin the experience of the mod. So before you compile your mod and put it in public, make sure to turn this back to false. But for now, let's turn this back to true because we are developing our game. Let's just make this a little smaller. And let's go back into our code. So the most obvious thing that's missing from our game is of course a background. So how do you show images in RenPy? There are essentially two ways to show an image. You can use the scene keyword and you can use the show keyword. There is essentially just one difference between the two. If you use scene, any image that's already being displayed is going to be deleted, so to speak, and it's going to show the new image. If you use show, it's going to just show the image on top of whatever is already there. That's basically just the only difference. So most of the time you use scene for the background because generally when you change background, you're deleting everything else. You want to just show the background, and you use show more for the characters. Of course, there are many exceptions to this, but as a general rule of thumb, this is a good place to start. So how do we actually choose what backgrounds to show? Well, each background has its own code. And you can find all these codes in a DDLC scripting guide made by Mr. Epic is here. I'm going to leave this in the description as usual. You can ignore the part about the poses and the expressions because we are using MPT, we are using a different system. But just below it, you can find the name of the backgrounds with the corresponding image. So for example, let's do class day. I want to show this class image. I can see that the name is class_day. And in DDLC specifically, to show the backgrounds, I'm going to use scene in this case, and you are going to do scene space bg space class_day. It's important, this BG here, it's important, because if you don't put it, it's not going to find the image, okay? So I'm just going to save. And here we are, we have our image, our background image. So maybe after MC talks, I want to change to the other image of the classroom. So I'm going to go to my little guide here. The other image is called club_day. So I'm going to go back to my club. After MC talks, I'm going to write scene bg club_day. I'm going to save. It's reloading the script. I'm going to advance in the dialogue, and after MC talks, it changes to the other image. And that's basically all there is to it. As you can see, the backgrounds are quite simple, but you might have guessed that the characters are a bit more complicated because we have to place them on the screen on the correct place, and they have a bunch of facial expressions that we need to choose. Back in episode 1.5, we installed MPT, which is a new way of defining the expressions for the characters, so let's learn how to do that. Okay, Sayori is talking right now, so let's get Sayori on the screen. You might also remember from episode 1.5 that we downloaded some MPT cheat sheets. So here, let's open Sayori's sheet. By the way, if you don't have Word in your computer, you can go to the Google folder that I gave you in episode 1.5, and you can open these files directly on the browser just by double-clicking them. Okay, so what do we have here? MPT essentially is a way of defining the expressions of the characters by describing how you want them to look. So essentially, in a few words, you're going to say to Renpai, I want to see Sayori with this pose, with this mouth, with these eyes, with these eyebrows, etc, etc. As you can see here at the top, Sayori has two poses. She has her turn pose and she has her tap pose. And be aware that each pose has its own faces. So here at the beginning of the file, you have the faces for the turn pose, and then near the end, you have the faces for the tap pose, so just be aware of that. But for now, let's use the turn pose, and with MPT, you can build the pose or the expression word by word. So let's go from the top down. Okay, so I want to show Sayori and I want to show her turn. So I'm going to my code and I'm going to put this side by side. Okay, and before Sayori speaks, I'm going to write show Sayori turned. Okay, so we chose the base. So now if we scroll a little bit, we're going to find our table for the outfit and the arms. She has two outfits, as you can see, uniform and casual. So I'm just going to write uniform. You always want to write the word that's in bold, okay? And here on the top, we can see the left arm and the right arm. She can have each arm down or up. And in this case, I'm just going to choose L up for left arm up and R down for right arm down. You're also going to notice that some of these words have default written under them. This means what you'd expect really, that if you don't write anything at all, that's the attribute that's going to be chosen by default. So if I deleted all these words, it's going to choose uniform by default, and it's going to choose L down, and it's going to choose R down. In general, the only thing that's mandatory, or else you're going to get an error, is either turn or tap. You have to choose one of them. You have to write here turn or tap, but everything else as a default, so it's going to show up. But for now, I'm going to leave it in just for clarity's sake. Also keep in mind that this file is unique to each girl. None of the other girls have the tap position and the poses change, so you'll have to check each girl's file to know which words to use, okay? So, okay, now we have the outfit and we have the arms, so let's go to the face. As I told you a few minutes ago, MPT allows you to individually choose the mouth, the eyes, and the eyebrows. But if you don't want to choose individually, there are some moods which are essentially shortcuts that choose each of the face attributes for you, and each one is tied to an emotion. So you can see this is neutral Sayori, this is angry Sayori, etc, etc. And for now, I wanna choose happy Sayori because I like to see Sayori happy. So I'm going to see the word that's in bold and I'm going to choose happy, which is just H-A-P-P. For each of these moods, you can choose if the mouth is closed or open and if the eyes are closed or open. All the combinations are here, and as you can see, for closed mouth you use CM, for open mouth you use OM, for open eyes you use OE, and for closed eyes you use CE. In this case, I'm just going to choose open eyes, open mouth because Sayori is talking. Okay, so let's go to the game. And there she is, because I have Autoreload on. As soon as I save the file, it reloaded the game. And as you can see, she's turned, she has her uniform, her left arm is up, her right arm is down. She has an happy expression with her open eyes and open mouth. It's probably worth mentioning that this order here isn't mandatory at all. You can put this in any order you want, as long as it's all there separated by spaces. It always works just fine, okay? But you might be thinking now, wow, that's a lot to type every time I just want to change an expression. But that's exactly why MPT is so cool. So let's say that after Sayori says her line, I want her to close her mouth and put her left arm down, for example. I don't need to type this whole thing again, I just need to type exactly the parts that I want to change. So for example, after Sayori talks, I'm going to say show Sayori. You always do this to say that you are making changes to Sayori. And I'm just going to say L down CM. What this is going to do, as you can see, the game is going to reload. As soon as this dialogue advances, she puts her arm down and she closes her mouth, but everything else stays the same. If in the next line I want her to just open her mouth again, I just do show Sayori, open mouth. It's going to reload. And as I advance, everything else stays the same and she opens her mouth. And you can mix and match this any way you want. As long as it's a valid attribute for that character, it always works. And so, just the first time that you show a character on screen, you have to detail everything that you want, but after that, you just have to write the changes and everything else stays the same. You can also switch between the base pose at will, there's no problem with that. So after this line, I'm going to say show Sayori, tap, pout, for example. And she's going to change her base pose to the other one. You can mix and match this any way you want. As long as it's valid, it's always going to work. And that's why MPT is so cool. To finish, just an example for the defaults, I'm going to delete everything except Sayori turn. And I'm going to go back. You can go back in the script by scrolling up, by the way. And you can see that when it reaches Sayori turned, it's going to show all the defaults for Sayori. Her defaults are the uniform, both arms down, and the neutral face. So if you write just Sayori turn, it's going to show all her defaults. You can also use just some of the defaults. For example, you can say Sayori turn happy, and it's going to choose all her happy defaults. And this is good just to save time. Make sure you're not writing too much, okay? Just to finish this MPT section, I'm going to show you the specific attributes that you can use. They are below the moods. First, you have a blush that you can apply to a character. For example, they go from N1 to N4. And you can see that there's a blush applied to Sayori. Below that, you have the mouths. There's a lot of mouths, there's a lot of eyes, and there's a lot of eyebrows that you can choose. I'm just going to choose like, I don't know, MG and I'm going to choose E1G completely at random, and I'm going to choose B1C for the eyebrows. And if we go to the game, you can see that we have the mouth from MG from this picture here. We have the E1G eyes, and we have the B1C eyebrows. And just like I've said before, you can mix and match these any way you want. If you want to create your own expressions that aren't defined by the moods, you can also mix the moods with specific attributes from down here. For example, maybe you start with happy, open eyes, open mouth, but then in the next line you want to keep everything else the same, but you want to show Sayori with mouth G or something. So we're going to start with the happy mood, but once we move on, it's going to change just the mouth to that specific mouth. And then if you want, you can even return to the default mouth for the mood by using closed mouth again. And it's going to return to the closed mouth for the mood. So in this case, we're using the happy mood, then we're using a specific mouth, then we're going back to the mouth that's associated to that mood. Like I said, you can pretty much mix and match anything you want. As long as it's an attribute that you can find in the file, it will pretty much always work. You can use this however you want. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's maybe add another character on screen. Let's add Yuri turned happy here. I'm going to go there, and whoops, Yuri is sitting in front of Sayori. And you might have noticed that all this time Sayori was actually too tall for the screen. So let's actually fix that. Let's go back to when Sayori was alone on the screen. And what you want to do is, after a show statement, at the end, you are going to add at T11. And if I reload this, you can see Sayori is now the correct size. This is what we call a transform. I'm not going to explain transform right now, that's going to be for another video. But for now, just keep in mind that to put the characters in the correct place, you're going to use at T11. Or more accurately, you are going to use at TXY, where XY are numbers. What do I mean by that? Let me go down here to where I'm showing Yuri, and right before that, or at the same time as I'm showing Yuri, I'm going to change Sayori's position to at T21, and I'm going to put Yuri at T22. And if I save the game and I go to that place in the script, you can see that they now both show up properly. So how does this work? In reality, the first number after the T is the number of characters that you want to show on screen. And the second number after the T is the order of those characters on the screen. So in this case, there's two characters on the screen and Sayori is the first one. And there's also two characters on the screen for Yuri and she's the second one. Of course, this goes all the way up to 3 and then to 4. You can use T41, T42 if you have 4, etc, etc. You'll also notice that these transforms, the TXY transforms, also come built in with animations. So when I show Sayori here at T11, she's animated as she appears, she has a little fade in, and also she moves to the left when she changes position, so you don't have to worry about that. Another transform you can use that's very common is the FXY transform. It works in exactly the same way as the TXY transform. The numbers mean exactly the same thing. You just substitute this T for an F, and all it does is zoom in on the character a little bit. You can see when I save here that Yuri is a little bit bigger, and people usually use this to indicate that that character is speaking. It's just an aesthetic thing, you might like it or not, but it's an option that you have. To hide the character, what you do is, well, hide and the name of that character. But if you do it like this, it's just going to disappear and it's going to look weird. So what you want to do is right before the hide, you're going to write show, in this case, Sayori at thide, and then like this, she's going to disappear more smoothly. Technically speaking, you can also add characters by using a scene. So for example, after I show them both, I'm going to just do scene BG bedroom, for example. And like I said, when you use the scene keyword, everything else disappears before showing what you are trying to show. So in this case, I'm going to use scene BG bedroom. Everything else is going to disappear and we're left with just the bedroom. Alright, so we've done backgrounds, we've done characters, so for today all that's left is music. I'm going back to the main menu here and I'm going to unmute the game. And you'll notice that when I start a new game, the main menu music just continues playing, and usually we don't want that. So how do we stop this music? We're gonna go to the top of our label here and we're just going to write stop music. And I'm going to reload the game. And you'll notice that now when I start a new game, the music stops. The word that comes after the stop is the channel that you're stopping. By default, Ren'Py has two channels, the music channel and the sound channel. And as you can imagine, although it's technically not mandatory, usually you play your songs in the music channel and you play any sound effects in the sound channel. Keep in mind that in each channel you can only play one audio file at the same time. So if, for example, you try to play two songs at the same time in the music channel, only one of them is going to play. By default, the main menu music plays on the music channel, so if right at the beginning of our story we do stop music, the main menu music is going to stop. Another thing you can add after the stop music is fade out and a number. I'm going to make it really big to make it really obvious. What this does is, instead of stopping the music instantly, it gradually lowers its volume over 10 seconds. So if I go back to the main menu and I click new game now and you listen carefully, the music slowly goes down over 10 seconds. To play a different song or play a sound effect, we are going to do play, the channel where we want to play, in this case music, and then the code that corresponds to that song. Once again, those codes can be found in the scripting guide where you have all the images, and they are here on the left. You can just choose one of them. I'm going to choose OK Everyone for no real reason. So it's going to be play music T5. And now if I go back, it's playing OK Everyone. If I want to stop it later, of course I do stop music. And when I reach that point in the story, the music stops. As there is a fade out for stopping music, there is a fade in to fade in music. So if I write after everything fade in, and I'm going to make it big again to make it really obvious, and I go back to the main menu and start a new game, you're going to see that the OK Everyone music slowly fades in. As you can see, or hear in this case. And when it comes to music, that's pretty much it. Playing sound effects is very similar. You can go to the scripting guide. The name of the sound effects are here on the right. Just like this note here says, there's a small caveat. Only these four can be used as is. So if I want to play the fall sound effect, for example, I can come here, I can do play sound to make sure that both the music and the sound effect can play at the same time. So we play them on separate channels. And in this case, I'm going to put the sound fall. And if I reload the game, after I go through this dialogue, you can hear the fall sound. But if I want to use one of the sound effects that come after this, I need to use this pattern here. Play sound sfx / the name of the effect.ogg. So for example, if I want to use the giggle sound, I have to come here to the code and I'll open double quotes sfx giggle.ogg. And if I go here, you're going to hear the sound. You can hear the giggle, and to use the other sound effect, you just replace this word here with the name of the sound effect that you can find here. And that's going to be it for today. With what we learned, you can already more or less make a full mod, albeit a simple one, but you can already add backgrounds, characters, music and dialogue, so you can tell a full story. But in the coming episodes, we're going to polish things a little bit, we're going to add some custom assets, and we're going to see some more complex things like branching paths and so on. As always, if you have any questions, the best place to put them is in the Discord server. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.